Hey everyone, this is Onisan Bama. Today I want to talk about the Isekai genre. In today's anime industry landscape, Isekai is probably by far the most dominant genre out there. And even though it isn't nearly as big as it was 5 years ago, it's still more represented by new shows every season than any other genre. Specifically, I want to talk about why Isekai is so popular. A lot of people might say that Isekai is popular because it is easy to watch, it is fun for everyone, and so on. And these are all valid reasons. But I want to explore this further. What is the real reason for Isekai dominating the industry the way it does, and why does its popularity endure after all these years? First of all, what is Isekai? Translated into English, the term Isekai means transported to another world. It was considered a subgenre of the fantasy genre where a regular person from Japan is hit by a truck and is then transported to a fantasy world where they go on a quest to solve whatever problem this fantasy world needs solving. Over the years, this formula has been tweaked by different authors, and some of these tweaks have become subgenres within the subgenre. As of writing, the fall-winter 2025 anime season has all of the regulars present. You get a normal isekai about a regular guy who's transported to a fantasy world and makes new friends and goes on a quest. You get an isekai anime about cooking in another world. You get an isekai anime where an entire class of students summoned to another world. And sometimes you get genre crossovers. For example, sometimes you get a villainous and isekai crossover where the main character dies in Japan and is then reborn as a villainous in a visual novel game. Sometimes you get reverse isekai anime where someone from a fantasy world gets transported to modern-day Japan, and that in itself has become something of its own genre as well. But where did this isekai dominance start? Look, isekai anime itself is nothing new. It has existed long before the modern isekai boom. One of the earliest examples of isekai anime is 1983's Outer Battle Donbin, which is about a high schooler who is transported to another world. There are numerous other early examples that we might actually still remember. Studio Ghibli's Spirited Away is technically an isekai, if you think about it. Chihiro steps into a fantasy world that is different from her own, and she has to find a way back to her own world and rescue her parents at the same time. Another classic example, which we usually do not think of isekai, is Inuyasha. Kagome, a high school student, falls into a well and ends up in medieval Japan, where she then goes on a quest to find all of the shards of a jewel while making new friends and enemies along the way. But we don't usually think of these as isekai, do we? They feel very different from what we consider isekai anime today, even though they're technically part of the same genre. Both you and I are thinking of the same thing when we think about modern isekai. We think of a generic fantasy world that looks like medieval Europe. It almost always has magic in it, and elves and beast people. There is always an adventurers guild where the character goes to take on jobs to make money, and there they also find friends. At the same time, the composition of these new friends vary from anime to anime, but usually you've got the main character, you got a mage, you got a best friend, you got a love interest, you get an elf who can also be the mage and the love interest at the same time. Sometimes it is a harem setting where the protagonist is surrounded by beautiful women who fall in love with him because it is a harem. Sometimes the anime has a video game-like leveling system where the character progresses by gaining experience points, and sometimes the fantasy world doesn't have that kind of system. I could go on for hours about the minute differences between different isekai, but you get my point. Generic fantasy world, cute girls, magic, elves, beast people, and maybe a demon lord. They all more or less have the same visual style, which is to say they all look a bit the same. And I think that is the first reason for the enduring popularity of isekai. The fact that it is all more or less the same. The visual style, the world building, the character setup, and so on. After a long day at work, a lot of people don't have the energy to invest into a brand new story and characters. They just want to sit down and enjoy something that is easy and familiar. And there's nothing wrong with that. People watch Friends and The Office and The Big Bang Theory for the thousandth time for the same reason. They just want something familiar and easy. It is comfort food. And that is okay. Everyone needs their comfort food. I do as well. I've read the same light novel over 6 times already, and I will probably do it another 6 times. But this isn't the foremost reason for isekai's popularity. I think there's an even deeper reason behind it. And to understand this reason, we need to dive a little deeper into Isekai history. When did this modern Isekai boom start? To put it simply, it all started with Sword Art Online. Sword Art Online was written by Reiki Kawahara. It started out as a web novel in 2002 and was published as a light novel in April 2009. Then in 2012, it was made into an anime by Sony A1 Pictures, and that's when things went really crazy. Sword Art Online took the industry by storm. It was easily the most talked about anime in 2012 and 2013. During that year, basically every cosplayer at every anime convention cosplayed as either Kirito or Asuna from Sword Art Online. I still remember when I was a university student in 2012 and Sword Art Online came onto the scene. My friends and I talked about that show every time we met up. I would eagerly await every new episode as it came out every week. It's about a guy called Kirito who logs into a virtual MMORPG called Sword Art Online, and it is the world's first virtual reality MMORPG. And then he discovers that the logout button is not there. In fact, no one can log out. The game's creator announces that this isn't a bug, but it is indeed a feature of Sword Art Online. It is impossible to log out on your own. The only way to log out is to defeat the final boss of the game. If you die in the game, you also die in real life. The virtual reality headset will microwave your brain and then you're dead. The story then follows Kirito as he uses this knowledge from an earlier beta test of the game to get an advantage above everyone else. He's made into the villain by the other players because he plays as a lone wolf. Later, he's joined by the story's heroine, Asuna, and they fight together and gradually fall in love. There is just something magical about this story concept. There have been many similar Isekai anime before that, but none of them had the magic that this one had. The sound effects, the soundtrack, the thrill of seeing Kirito navigate this perilous fantasy game world while making new friends. It truly was a magical moment in anime history. And once Sword Art Online happened, there was no going back. The industry has seen the light and the dollar signs, and the Isekai horses were off to the races. After Sword Art Online, we got several other big hits that took the industry by storm. We had Reincarnated as Slime, we had Konosuba, we had Ari Fureta. But out of all the Isekai that followed, there are three that stand out in my mind. Three that are above the others. The first that comes to mind is the rising of the Shield Hero. A Shield Hero is a special one because I think it has the strongest ties to Sword Art Online. Let me explain why. In the rising of the Shield Hero, the main characters are summoned to another world to save it, right, from a demon lord, all pretty standard. You get a spear hero, you get a bow hero, you get a sword hero, and so on. And our protagonist is assigned to be the Shield Hero, the most useless hero of them all. Because he doesn't have a weapon, he has a shield. He is shunned by everyone because of the shield that he has been assigned. He's then betrayed by one of his so-called companions, and then he's thrown out of the kingdom by the king. In face of this injustice, the Shield Hero leaves and gathers new companions and forms new friendships. And it is this sense of betrayal, isolation, and injustice that connects the Shield Hero to the success of Sword Art Online, where Kirito also faces a similar injustice, where he sees everyone banding together against him and making him an outcast. This emotion is something a lot of people can relate to, I think. Many of us were bullied and shunned in our student years, and we carry that sense of injustice deep in our hearts, even as we leave school behind and enter the adult world. This feeling never truly goes away. Sword Art Online connected with this feeling and became a success as a result, I think. And the Shield Hero really dove into it. And I believe that is the second reason for the enduring success of Isekai. It is this feeling of injustice that the audience gets to live through with the characters, which then leads to an emotional catharsis that makes this entire genre so appealing. There are two other anime on the list. The first is Re:Zero, right? Re:Zero is basically Groundhog Day and Isekai combined, where the main character is killed over and over again until he finds the right pathway to survive. And the other one is really special, in my opinion, and that is Mushoku Tensei. Like all other Isekai, it is about a guy who's reborn into a fantasy world and restarts his life there. It is about Rudeus, who is lazy and fat and useless in his former life, and he recognizes that he was a terrible person in his previous life and he wants to do better in this new chance that he's been given. He's reborn as a baby with his adult consciousness and all of his memories intact. He learns magic, he meets new people, he travels to new lands, he fights enemies, and even goes to magic school. Okay? That all sounds pretty standard. What is so different about this one then? In my opinion, it is the quality of the writing that sets it apart. The depiction of Rudeus and the regrets that he feels are so well done and really well portrayed and easy to relate to. The world building is more detailed and it feels like a real place rather than a generic fantasy setting. The characters aren't templates. They feel unique and real. Some call Mushoku Tensei the grandfather of Isekai. In that case, if Sword Art Online is the father, then Mushoku Tensei is undoubtedly the mother. And I believe that is the third reason for the overall enduring success of Isekai. Many of us regret how our lives turn out. Somewhere deep down, we wish we could go back in time and fix the mistakes that we've made. Maybe we should have apologized to this friend. Maybe we should have taken this opportunity rather than the other. Maybe this, maybe that. We all live with regrets. Anime like Re:Zero and Mushoku Tensei show us what it's like to get a second chance. They allow us to fantasize about what it's like to get a second chance. Maybe we don't consciously think about this while watching, but I think that the emotional appeal of it comes from the subconscious. We wish we could have gotten a second chance, done things differently, but in reality, we can't do that. But we can do that, we can think about that, we can feel it through the characters in Isekai anime. So, we have our first three reasons. First, Isekai anime is comfort food. Second, Isekai anime offers emotional catharsis to those who experienced injustice in their student years. And third, Isekai serves people's emotional need for a second chance or a chance to redo their life. I could have ended the video here because God knows this video is long enough, but I think there's one more reason, an even deeper reason, an even more fundamental reason for the success and appeal of Isekai. Why did Isekai become popular in 2012 when Sword Art Online came out? Why did it not blow up way before that? Because Sword Art Online wasn't the first Isekai anime. We had Dot Hack, we had Log Horizon, but none of them created the same phenomena that Sword Art Online did. I believe it was a timing problem. I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I found the answer in a book I was reading recently. I was reading Letter from Japan by Marie Kondo. In it, she briefly touches on the popularity of Isekai, and she explains why she thinks it is so popular. She says, and I quote, "When I'm casually scrolling through my phone, I often see ads for stories where the protagonist is transferred to another world and starts out with special powers, quickly overcoming one challenge after the other. This has become an established genre known as Isekai, one of the major trends in manga and anime today. What's behind these popular stories, I believe, is our exhaustion, burnout, an unstable society without end, the reality that hard work doesn't always pay off. Perhaps such sentiments have spread through society, especially among younger generations. So today, instead of pursuing the ideals of perseverance, we want to be healed by protagonists who are already strong, a world that rewards us without effort. The world of manga offers a vivid reflection of our contemporary mood. And I believe that is the fourth and most important reason explaining the enduring popularity of Isekai. After the 2008 financial crisis, something fundamentally changed in the worldwide economy. People lost their homes and ended up on the streets. The middle class was destroyed. We cannot start families. We cannot afford property. Many of us can barely afford a car. We are constantly told to stop being lazy and to just work harder. Stop buying coffee and avocado toast and stop watching Netflix, and then you can buy a house. That is what we are told. We feel that the whole world has betrayed us and is spitting in our faces. And perhaps that adds to the reason why we enjoy Isekai as much as we do. We are so tired of working ourselves to the bone and not receiving the fruits of our labor. In the past, a postman could buy a house. These days, a postman can barely pay rent. We are so tired, and that's why we want to watch an anime where the protagonist is rewarded for doing relatively little. We enjoy those shows so that our exhausted hearts and bodies and minds can survive another day. And exactly 4 years after the 2008 financial crisis, Sword Art Online comes along. I believe one of the reasons why Sword Art Online blew up in 2012 was because of the impact the 2008 financial crisis had on our lives. Our lives became harder, and hard work was no longer rewarded in the same way. In 2012, we were emotionally and mentally exhausted. It was the ideal time for an isekai to blow up. I personally have also tried my hand at the isekai genre. I wrote a story that is a parody of the isekai genre, and it's called Instead of Becoming the Hero, I Was Reincarnated as a Billionaire. In it, the Adventurers Guild only provides the worst jobs because if you think about it, adventurers are no different from gig economy workers that we see today. It's a story that takes a brutally honest look at what an isekai world would actually be like if we were there. Alright guys, that's all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to comment and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.